Thanks, my friend. I'm doing terrific. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream. You know, we're all watching what's happening with Harvey. As you know, Corpus Christi, Port A, Mustang Island, San Antonio. Looks like we're going to get a bunch over here, too. I know that you've been touring around the state. First and foremost, what would you tell people who are thinking about riding this out on the coast?
Well, I would say watch the emergency warnings carefully and listen to the advice as we learn more where exactly it's going to hit and how serious it is, that if you get an evacuation, seriously, don't mess around. I mean, we're getting predictions of up to 20 inches of rain, and that flooding can be very dangerous, and it can be life-threatening. And so take it seriously and don't mess around.
Yeah, I heard there was one ominous warning this afternoon that said some parts of the coast near Corpus Christi in that area could be uninhabitable for weeks after this storm if it does what they think it might do.
Well, listen, our prayers are certainly with everyone along the coast. Our hope is the storm dissipates. It doesn't have a landfall and doesn't have the extended rain, but we need to be prepared for the worst and do everything we can to minimize the risk to life.
I think without a doubt, everybody's worried about what's going to happen with the hurricane, and the entire nation is watching to see what's going to happen with it. But before we even knew that Harvey was on the way, you had done a tour of the Lone Star State, our state, and you were just shaking hands, kissing babies, doing just some get-togethers with people, and really finding out what the voters are concerned about, what Texans are concerned about. And Ted, you and I have talked about this before. I think the way Texas goes many times, the country goes. So what are you hearing from people?
Well, I think people are hopeful that the new administration and the new Congress will deliver on what we promised. We'll deliver jobs and economic growth. We'll repeal Obamacare. We'll cut taxes. We'll lift regulation. But they're also frustrated. They're ticked off at Congress that we haven't delivered, and they're frustrated at how slow the path has been. You know, as you and I are talking now, I'm in El Paso. I'm actually in a truck with the Border Patrol. I just finished going on a helicopter patrol of the Rio Grande here in El Paso, and actually just drove by the famous Rosa's Cantina, from the old Marty Robbins song, out in the West Texas town of El Paso.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I'll tell you, our Border Patrol agents, it was really, I've spent the past couple of hours with the Border Patrol agents getting ready to do a town hall with a number of them. And these are men and women that risk their lives every day to keep us safe. And they need to be thanked, and they need to have the resources to do their jobs better. As we were flying in the helicopter, there are, massive portions of the border that are not secured, that don't have fencing or walls or anything, and they don't have the technology to monitor and stop incursions. And I'm hopeful that we will see the administration and Congress work together to provide all the tools necessary to get the job done.
U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican from right here in the great state of Texas. Ted, for 8 years, as you know, the Obama administration tied the hands, shackled the Border Patrol, ICE, DHS, basically told them catch and release, ignore who's coming over, don't do your job, observe but don't do anything. What's the morale like now that you've got a guy in the White House and people like you who support what the Border Patrol is doing to protect us?
Well, I think the morale is significantly better. But listen, it was a frustrating job for 8 years, and I've spent a lot of my time in the Senate trying to visit and listen to Border Patrol agents. If you're out there risking your lives in dangerous environments and you're encountering violent drug cartels, armed traffickers, and you apprehend them and you bring them in, and only to turn around and see the political leadership process them out and release them out in a matter of hours, that's demoralizing. Again, one of the things I've heard from a number of agents is how frustrated they were that the previous administration, when there would be violence and physical assaults, rocks thrown at agents or punches thrown or other physical assaults, that the Obama administration far too often wouldn't prosecute those cases. They didn't think it was worth the prosecutorial resources. What I've shared with the agents repeatedly is, in my view, if anybody assaults a federal agent, they ought to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And I'm encouraged that what I'm hearing is that the Trump administration is behaving markedly differently, that they're devoting the resources to prosecute those cases, and that's exactly what they should be doing.
Ted, what are people, as you travel around, saying about the failure of the Senate to do something about health care?
Frustrated out of their mind, and understandably so. I think Obamacare, we have for 7 years promised the American people, if you elect Republicans, we will repeal the disaster that is Obamacare. I think failure is not an option. If we don't get it done, I think we look collectively like fools. Now, a lot of folks in the media celebrated a few weeks ago when the repeal vote failed by a single vote in the Senate. That was a disappointing. That was a heartbreaking night. It was a very difficult night to be standing on the Senate floor and watching that happen. But I don't think we're done. In fact, we can't be done, and I am committed to continuing to work day and night to try to bring Republicans together to deliver on our promises, and in particular to repeal Obamacare. And I'll tell you, Pags, the way we get that done is we focus on lowering premiums. The biggest reason so many people are unhappy with Obamacare, are hurting under Obamacare, is that premiums have skyrocketed. So what I hear from Texans is I can't afford health insurance anymore. The federal government caused that problem through Obamacare. We need to fix it. And if we're lowering premiums, that's how we come together and deliver on our promise.
Well, Ted, I think you know that if you don't do it, the majorities are gone. I mean, 2018, the Democrats are going to say, see, we told you Obamacare is the best thing available, and the Republicans failed. They lied to you. They didn't get it done. That's a real possibility, is it not?
It is a very real possibility. If we fail to deliver, I think the policy consequences are devastating, and I think the political consequences could easily be devastating. We could see a Nancy Pelosi House and a Chuck Schumer Senate. And that would be. Do you know why John McCain did it, Ted? Have you had a conversation with him? Has Mitch McConnell talked to him? Has somebody said why the downvote on three simple things that would have at least gotten you to a committee or a convening of the House and Senate to talk more about it? Why say no? You know, I don't have a good answer to that. I will confess, when the vote went down on the Senate floor, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I actually had to just turn around and leave the Senate floor because there were a couple of my colleagues who, if I spoke to them, I was not going to speak in a manner appropriate to address another senator. So I just
understood
off because it's, you know, when you campaign over and over again promising, I'm going to lead the fight against Obamacare.
Right.
I don't understand how, when you get to the Senate floor, you behave differently. And that frustration is real. But let me say this, you know, the day after that vote, I spoke with our leadership, and they said, listen, we're moving on to tax reform. And I said, listen, we got to do tax reform. I'm all in on tax reform. It's important to get it done. But we can't be done, and I'm not giving this up. I am not leaving this fight. And so I'm spending my time meeting with all the senators that are no votes or have concerns and trying to bring people together. And I got to tell you, Joe, I think we're closer than many outside observers believe. I think we probably have substantively 45, 46 votes. Now, we need 50. We need another 4 or 5. But I believe we can get there, and I am talking to colleagues on a daily basis, trying to continue to bring us together to just do what we said we would do.
Ted, can you philosophically tell me why the Republicans don't congeal the way the Democrats do? I mean, when the Democrats took the House and Senate in 2006, Obama wins in 2008, and he crammed everything and anything he wanted right down our throats, and nobody could stop them. Now the Republicans have that opportunity to do the same thing and push an agenda. I think the agenda is all the same. Whether you like the president or not, the agenda seems to be pretty close for all Republicans. What is it about Republicans that they don't circle the wagons the same way? What's the problem?
You know, I think there's several things. One, I just think temperamentally, Democrats believe in government power. They're statists and they're collectivists. And so they're more willing to just shut up and follow orders. Yeah. Republicans, for good or for ill, many of us are individualists. And so we get more people that are willing to stand as individuals. That's a positive thing, but sometimes it's a negative thing too. But I think secondly, there is a far wider ideological diversity in the Republican conference. I mean, there is a vast gulf between a Susan Collins and a Rand Paul.
Right.
I mean, just a serious difference of beliefs and principles and opinions. You look at the Democrats, they have almost no ideological diversity. I mean, the lesson Senate Democrats took from this last election was that Hillary Clinton was too moderate, and they need more Bernie Sanders, more Elizabeth Warren. And so what used to be a common thing in Washington, a so-called moderate Democrat, now by and large doesn't exist. They're all liberals. Many of them are Bernie Sanders socialists now. On the Republican side, we've got a broader array of diversity of views. But that being said, we can't be sitting in a circular firing squad shooting each other on the Republican side. This is potentially a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. A Republican president, Republican heads of every agency, Republican majorities in both houses. We can't blow it. And so I am working day and night with doing everything I can just to try to bring us together, and I do think, Joe, that I've got a relatively unusual ability to be able to speak with some real credibility to conservatives but also to speak in the Senate to moderates and leadership and the president, the administration, and trying to say, guys, let's find common ground to deliver on our promises and bring back real jobs and real economic growth.
I know you've got to go. Last question, just yes or no. Will you get health care and tax reform done this year?
I hope so. I pray so. But every waking moment will be devoted to trying to do exactly that.
Senator, always appreciate the time. Let's talk again soon. Senator Ted Cruz, great state of Texas. Thank you, Ted.